Hey everyone, I'm Mind, and this is set number 9446, Destiny's Bounty from the LEGO Ninjago Rise of the Snakes wave. This set contains 680 pieces, 6 minifigures, and originally retailed for $79.99 when it first released back in 2012. It could be any set from 2011 to 2018, and while I don't have them all, I do have a lot of them, so let me know in the comments which set you want to see most, and I might just select it for the next Ninjago throwback review. If you want to see which sets I've already done, I have a full playlist linked in the description below and in the pinned comment. But now, with all that being said, let's get into this review. So here is the 2012 Destiny's Bounty, and of course this was the very first ever Destiny's Bounty. At this point we've had, what, 6 over the years? 7 if you include the 4+ one? But this set right here is where it all began. It's super exciting to finally have this set in my collection too, because I've gotten every other bounty as it's come out. But the very first one is the one that I've been missing for the longest time, but I found it recently for a good price, and it's so satisfying to finally have as a part of my collection. But how is it as an actual set? Well, let's move the camera up a little bit closer and take a look at everything that it has to offer. Starting of course with the dragon figurehead at the front of the ship. Now every single Destiny's Bounty has done this in some form or another. On some of them it is this giant dragon head, on others it's a lot smaller. The movie one has like 2 smaller dragon heads, but because this is the first one and this is what's iconic to me. Now it's interesting how they did it, because this is actually a rubber piece, it's not a hard plastic part, because it's just a recolor of the dragon heads from 2011. In 2011, we had 4 different dragon sets. There was an Earth Dragon, a Fire Dragon, an Ice Dragon, and a Lightning Dragon. And every single one of those, except for the Earth Dragon, used the same exact headpiece. And this is that same part again, though now recolored in red and without any printing. And there's definitely a lot of nostalgia to this part for me, because it has details that you can't capture in like a brick-built head. That being said, I won't lie, like looking at it objectively, taking the nostalgia goggles off a little bit, it does feel like it's placed in here a little bit awkwardly, especially with the bottom jaw that's brick-built right below it. I don't know, it feels a little disconnected. I do still love it because of how iconic it is, but if I'm gonna ask myself like what's actually the better build, I probably prefer like how the Legacy Bounty does it. That's a very detailed head that's also brick-built, so it feels like it fits in with everything. This is just a giant rubber piece stuck at the front. But hey, I mean, it's iconic, I love it. Something kind of cool in this set that I don't think actually existed in the show is the dragon's head sort of extends back up the mast. This is almost somewhat similar to what this year's Destiny's Bounty does, the 2025 one, and because I never had this set, I never really noticed that. But yeah, it's got like this tiny little body and a tail, and it almost looks like it's helping hold the mast up. What that actually is though is some functionality with this anchor right here. If you turn the cylinder in the center, you can deploy the anchor, or you can reel it back in. This is just one of those standard LEGO string pieces that was used all the time, especially back in like 2011, 2012, so it's a very, very long part. I could unspool the entire thing, but I really don't want to roll that back up. You can use your imagination though. I doubt this is even halfway. This bounty has some nice gold railings on it, especially these slope pieces right here. I feel like that's a pretty uncommon color for that part. However, one thing this bounty definitely lacks that a lot of future bounties had is the depth on the side of the boat, because yeah, there is really not anything at all here. This is basically just a flat board. If you compare this to like the Legacy Bounty, which was meant to be a remake of this ship, that has a full hull with a full interior that's just not present in the slightest here. And I'm in 2 minds about that. On one hand, I feel like that makes this a pretty bad boat because, I don't know, it doesn't have like that presence it's supposed to have. But on the other hand, I don't really see this set as much as a boat. Like, yes, it is the Destiny's Bounty, but more than that, it's a play set. You're meant to pose your minifigures on it, and there's meant to be things for them to do here. So as a play set, I think it's really great. And not having the full hull did help bring the price down, because only $80 is pretty cool. Piece count on this set isn't super high either. So while I do like that future Destiny's Bounties definitely go a lot deeper, I don't think it's the end of the world that this one doesn't. It just makes it a very different set from those. I will say the deck space is not bad at all. I expected this to be significantly more cramped. And listen, there's definitely like quite a few things going on here, but you could still easily pose all the minifigures in the set plus a few extras. And especially if you go back into the steering area too, I'm pretty surprised how many studs there are. There's lots of accessories for the ninja to use here on the ship as well. We have 4 different crossbows, which I know if I had gotten this as a kid, I would have loved. I always thought it was really cool when there was like weapons and stuff that integrated into a build, but you can also take off and give to your minifigures. And in my mind, it was always the more the better, so getting 4 here is fantastic. But it's also fun that the crossbows are sort of like a Ninjago-esque version of a cannon. I mean, we have a literal cannon back here too, but I think it's fun that instead of like a whole array of cannons, there's an array of crossbows. On the sides of the mast, there's some clips that hold some minifigure accessories. Specifically, we have 2 silver katanas on each side. That's enough to give both Zane and Jay in this set 2 swords. And then the mast itself is of course one of the most iconic features of the Destiny's Bounty. These are the original paper sail pieces, and I think they're fantastic. The red streaks on them just look super cool, and they've got a really nice shape. But of course, this is a Destiny's Bounty, so the sails are meant to transform. In the case of this set, that's done with this little Technic lever right below the mast. Very simple to do, just push down on it, it pulls on a string, and that opens the wings up in a very quick and easy way. When it's down too, they're basically locked in place, they're not going to fall back down. And the lever uses one of these hinge pieces, so there's like distinct notches that it has. You can have it fully down like this, up ever so slightly, and then if you go up one more time, it's fully closed. Here's how that looks on the sales side. So partially open, fully open. We've had so many Destiny's bounties at this point that I can't even keep track of all the sale functions off the top of my head, but this feels like one of the best we've got. It's simple but incredibly effective. Like, those notches are perfect, the wings aren't getting caught up or anything, one's not going higher than the other. It's fun, it looks great, and it does exactly what it's supposed to do. At the top of the mast, I guess we sort of have a little crow's nest. It doesn't really look like a crow's nest, but we do have two of these like stickered triangular signs. And behind that, I mean, there is some studs. It doesn't look very safe, but if you really wanted to pose a minifigure up there, you absolutely could. I feel like this is a good place for Jay to go. Have fun with that, buddy. Before we fully come back down to the deck, something I want to mention, these like golden barriers right here are very fragile. If you grab this when you're moving it around, it's very easy to accidentally pop them off, so definitely not the most solid build. But anyway, back down on the deck, here we actually have quite a few secrets to discover. First, you may notice these upside-down slope pieces. These are on both sides of the ship, and they can actually be flipped upwards, and they reveal a little golden knife inside. That's very fun. I love how they're tucked away, and again, it's great to have more minifigure accessories. Then in the center of the deck, we have two stickered trapdoor pieces. Now this looks like it would be the entrance to something probably inside of the hull, but because there isn't an actual interior, maybe they'd hide something else down there. But no, unfortunately, these are entirely a facade. As you can see, with the one I just removed, it's just studs underneath. It does look cool, and I like the implied depth, but I would have liked if there was something hidden under there. Luckily, there is actually something hidden right behind it. This gray board right here is on a hinge and can move down, and with that out of the way, you can see there's some treasure hidden inside. It's just 3 transparent clear gem pieces. Anyway, when that's closed up, it's more of like a step to get up to this upper area, and this is where we have a cannon as well as the steering wheel in just a moment. The cannon is just a classic LEGO Pirates cannon piece. It's on a little turntable so you can point it whatever direction you want, and if you've never seen these before, you can actually launch cannonballs with it. You pull back on the back like this, load up a cannonball, and then when you let go, it'll launch. Unfortunately, there's nothing in it right now, but you do get this side build in the set, which is just a crate. You can fit this on the bounty somewhere, but there's not really a great spot for it. You kind of just have to find an open area. There's no like official place to put it. But anyway, this comes with a printed map piece. This is not like a special printed map or anything, but still cool to get. You can imagine this is like the map to the Fang Blades or the map to the Golden Weapons. And we have 4 black cylinder pieces in here, which are meant to be the cannonballs. So you can load that up into the cannon, tilt it back a little bit to properly load it, and then go ahead and launch it when you're ready. That didn't go very far. Let's try that again. Okay, yeah, that shot for real. It's a pirate ship, makes sense to have a cannon. Behind that, we have a little covered area with a black roof, and this actually has a pretty unique angle, especially for 2012. It uses some Technic pieces, and the roof's actually going, like, up and backwards. But the coolest part about this is you can actually fold it out of the way, so then you have better minifigure access back here. With that removed, it's very simple inside, just have a steering wheel and lots of studs for minifigures, including a little bit of back deck space, and I think this is a pretty good spot to put the crate if you actually want to include it on the set. We have 2 printed flag pieces hanging off the back, and this was a time before Ninjago, so I believe they used a combination of real, like, Chinese and Japanese characters. I think it was mostly Chinese, and these were the printed flags that also came in all of the Dragon sets in 2012, so I believe what it translates to is, like, Dragon God or something along those lines, which I think is very funny. Translating Ninjago is definitely a lot more fun, because I feel like the people who made these prints just thought it looked cool and didn't really care what it meant. Anyway, here's a look at the inside of that roof, and it can close back up very easily. Again, the ease of that transformation is very impressive. And despite not being a ton of parts, I do think the roof looks nice. Especially the use of these pieces. I believe these originally come from like the back of pickup trucks in LEGO City. But this feels like a very Ninjago City style part to use. Speaking of interesting parts, let's come down to the wings or engines or whatever you want to call them on the side. And here we have a very, very cool parts use. You can see this red part right here is a very unique shape, and that's because this was originally a licensed piece. That, I believe, is the hood of one of the characters from LEGO Cars. I don't know if this is Lightning McQueen himself, but it's definitely from the LEGO Cars line. And this is the first, if not only time we got it unprinted. Normally you would have like the big cartoony car eyes right here, but nope, they made an unprinted version to use it as detailing on the bounty, and I think that looks phenomenal. That being said, I do feel like the bigger wing leaves a little bit to be desired. There's definitely some cool pieces in here, like I like this big rounded part, and the end of the wing is cool, but I feel like they needed a little bit more to bulk it up, give it a bit more substance, because especially on this brown wedge, it feels very thin. Of course, everything's the same on the other side, just mirrored, but then you know this is the Destiny's Bounty, so it can transform. And I have to say, just like the sails, this is one of the best transformation features I've seen on a bounty. Simply pull back the wings like this, and gravity does the rest. Now the wings are pointing downwards, you have these engines back here that theoretically are creating thrust, and it's just so satisfying to watch things pop into place. Then when you're done, very easy to just transform it back, but this might be my favorite part of the set, is just going back and forth between these. And if you want, you could trigger the transformation by the small one too, though the big one's definitely easier. Now, because this is a 2012 set, if I am going to compare it to modern bounties, this definitely isn't the prettiest looking transformation I've seen. I do think these back wings are a little bit too thin, and I don't love how open and exposed this front part gets, but I could sort of overlook all of that when it's so satisfying just to watch these things click in place. Triggering the transformation will cause this tan Technic beam to stick out, so that's another way to undo it. You could just push up on that, it sort of goes inside the ship, and it goes back to how it was. But you can still see it if you look underneath. And if you got tiny fingers, you can reach in here and do the opposite. Push back on the Technic beams, and that'll cause the transformation. And here's how the fully transformed 2012 bounty looks actually flying around. It really is the biggest thing just being how thin that hull is. Because aside from that, there's a ton that's really great about this. But especially with the value of hindsight, yeah, it definitely feels like something's missing there. So honestly, I see this more as when they first discovered the bounty, right? When it's not even operational, it's just like sunken in the desert in what, episode 2 of the show? This does a really good job to represent that, and to be fair, this is the set that's based on. However, if you do want the ship, the big flying ship, I feel like a lot of the modern sets do it better. But there is still a lot of fun to be had here, just more as a location build than as a vehicle. So is it my favorite bounty? No, probably far from it. But as just a set, I like it. I'm happy to finally have it. However, of course, that's not everything in the set. So now let's take a look at the one side build, I guess aside from the crate, then the minifigures, and then I'll give you my overall thoughts on everything at the end. Here is the side build in the set, this Snake Shrine, and I love these so much. This is another one of those things that I feel like is desperately missing from modern Ninjago, because these were so much fun to collect as kids. It's not a huge thing, right? It's just a little bonus build in the set, but it looks really cool and it does just encourage play. The concept is simple. The snakes and the ninja are fighting over the Hypnobrai snake staff, which yes, you do get the Hypnobrai one in this set. Of course, the only difference between them is the printed tile. But instead of them fighting each other for it, it has like a starting location beneath this shrine, and they did try to make all the shrines look cool. So most, if not all 2012 sets had something for the snakes, even if it was something small like this. In fact, in the smaller sets, they were smaller. But it's nice to have something for the villains, even if it is tiny. And especially location builds, I think, are a ton of fun to collect, because you can put them on a base plate, and it doesn't look half bad when you have a lot of them. One of the coolest aspects, too, is this piece at the top is actually printed. Now, it did come in multiple sets, but that made all these shrines have a consistent aesthetic. And using a lightsaber blade as well as an antenna piece to be dripping venom looks awesome. So yeah, this is, what, less than 25 parts, but it's an amazing addition to the set. More things like this, please, LEGO. Side builds do not have to be huge to have personality. Now coming to the minifigures, here are the first two in this set. We have Kendo Zane and Kendo Jay. The Kendo suits are odd. I definitely feel like there's some of the suits that have aged the worst, like as time has gone on. Now you do have to keep in mind when these came out, we only had 4 ninja suits total. We had the original, we had DX, we had Kendo, and then we had ZX in the same wave. But yeah, Kendo was odd because whenever you got a Kendo suit, you're like, man, I really wish the ZX suit came in this set instead. I do like the idea behind Kendo, right? It's the ninja in training gear. I think the issue was they weren't like a one-off thing. If these were like a spinner exclusive, I would have been fine with them, but I feel like they came in way too many sets. The bounty does make sense, I guess. It's a home base, so maybe they would be in training gear, but the ZX outfits definitely look significantly cooler, and they came in other sets this wave. I do believe this is the only full-scale set that Zane and Jay each came in, but Kendo Zane had a spinner as well, and Kendo Jay was in a gift with purchase, so there was other ways to get these guys. And then of course there was no exclusive parts to them either. The only new parts were the Kendo armor and the Kendo helmet, and they were exactly the same across all the ninja. Kendo Cole came in, I think, 3 or 4 sets, so it was very easy to have extras of him, so you could very easily build these guys. And then the torso and legs underneath are just their 2011 suits. I will say the accessories they came with, kinda cool. Size are pretty common now, but they were new for 2012, so I remember really wanting them when I first saw them in sets. And then this claw weapon I thought was the coolest thing ever. I don't know when I finally got my hands on one for the first time, but I wanted this piece so bad when I was a kid. Because I saw it as similar to like the Wolverine claws, but slightly different, it fit the ninja better. So I wanted this piece so bad. I remember looking at this set in the LEGO magazines and not even caring about the set itself, but just wanting this weapon for Jay. So there is something that's very satisfying about finally having that. And I will say the actual molds for the Kendo armor and Kendo helmet are actually pretty good. It's just the coloration that stinks. Gray's really ugly, and I don't like how they don't have unique colors on them. The way Kendo was done for the Ninjago movie is significantly better. Yes, that is 5 years later, but it's the same parts. And those suits existing make these feel very dated. Here they are with their armor pieces and helmets removed. As I said, just the standard 2011 suits. Here are the next 2 minifigures in the set. We have Sensei Wu and we have 4-armed Garmadon, which is of course how we see Garmadon all the time now, but this was the first ever set to ever come with 4-armed Garmadon, so that was a huge draw to get this one. Starting with Wu, this is probably my least favorite Wu suit. I don't know, I just find it kind of boring. It never appeared in the show, it's entirely non-canon, and he used it in both 2012 and 2013 in the sets. 2013 he just changed it out for a golden hat, and I feel like they just took what made his design work and made it a little little more lame. It's not bad, it's just less interesting than the 2011 suit. And when the 2011-2012 figures aren't the most detailed in the first place, this doesn't feel like anything too special to me. Swapping the black belt out for a gray one I think looks really lame. And I mean, the torso piece is cool, I like the little dragon on the back. And with the beard removed, it is actually a fairly nice looking part. But that's the thing, is you have the beard on anyway, so you're never gonna see it. To me, the 2011 suit is so similar and a lot more iconic. This came in tons of sets, never appeared in the show, so I just don't care for it a ton. I guess though, just like Garmadon, this was the first set to come with that figure, so that was somewhat of a draw. And then four-armed Garmadon. I don't know if you guys know what it's like, but being 10 years old in 2012 and seeing this minifigure for the first time, this was the coolest thing ever. Because the idea of a four-armed minifigure was always very cool, and we sort of had it before. There was a Space Police minifigure that had an extra 2 arms, but they were battle droid arms. And then even in Ninjago in 2011, we had Samukai who had 4 arms, but he was a skeleton. Garmadon was the first minifigure, though, to actually use 4 minifigure arms, I guess, unless you count the LEGO Monkey. So yeah, I thought this was the coolest thing ever. And honestly, I think this design still holds up fairly well. There's a reason why they didn't change very much with him when they did Legacy in 2019. Purple belt is simple, it's a very evil looking color. I like that he has leg printing now, parts of the belt come down into his legs because the torso is the same as his 2011 torso, but back in 2011 when he only had 2 arms, he also had unprinted legs. His upper torso piece is gunmetal gray, which I think is a nice touch, the fact that it's not just solid black. It helps give him some more dimension, it makes it look like he's wearing armor, and it also matches the color of his helmet piece. And then yeah, that helmet is really cool. I do prefer his 2011 helmet, but the all-new Samurai X helmet, which he's also using here, I think was a fun way to shake it up. And this was an all-new Part 4 Ninjago, when the original Lord Garmadon helmet came from the older ninja theme. The only part I don't like about 2012 Garmadon is the metallic printing that he uses for his torso and his face, specifically his face. I get what they're going for, right? He's meant to be the king of shadows, so his face details are sort of hidden away. It's metallic silver on top of black, so it's not super easy to see. However, yeah, it's not super easy to see, so I feel like he loses a little bit of his personality here. That's the one change they made to this guy in 2012, they used solid gray instead of metallic silver. And while that's maybe not as fancy as this minifigure, it looks significantly better, because especially the facial details I find incredibly hard to see. I like what they were going for, and it doesn't make him a bad minifigure, but the updated version is definitely better. And finally, we come to the last 2 minifigures in the set, Slitheraa and Scales, 2 different Serpentine, members of the Hypnobrai tribe. The Serpentine are by far my favorite villain faction we have ever had in Ninjago. I think it's so amazing that in 2012 we had 17 different unique villains. And it wasn't even like they just had different torso prints, no, we had multiple head molds, every single character had a completely unique design. It was so amazing, and man, what I wouldn't give to have villains like this again. Slitheraa was actually exclusive to the set at the time it came out, and that was kind of exciting because he was a somewhat prominent character in the show. Not super important, but he was a named Serpentine, which a lot of them weren't, and he had some lore relevance very early on in the season. So I remember always wanting to get this guy as a kid, but I never got him until significantly later. I will say he's got a very weird design. I'm not the biggest fan of the dark gray on the arms. I feel like it looks a little bit messy with the dark blue. And the yellow too. I think the yellow on the Hypnobrai is one of the coolest details. Scales does it really well. But the dark gray in there makes it somewhat murky. I'm getting a little ahead of myself though. First, let's talk about their accessories. Scales has this gigantic spear from LEGO Castle, I believe, originally. I love when they used to include just these giant weapons and sets for random villains. That was not an uncommon part at all in 2012, but it was always a very cool one. I definitely loved playing with those. And then Slitheraa's just got like a little golden blade here. I think those both work. But yeah, with those removed, there's a better look at just the minifigures. Because Scales is the general and Slitheraa is the second in command, they do have the same exact headpiece. Their eyes are exactly the same, but Slitheraa has gray back here, Scales is yellow. And the Serpentine have printing on the tops of their heads too. And these two have an entirely different pattern. I actually think the pattern on the top of Slitheraa's head's quite cool. It just doesn't translate the best to the torso, and the torso's not even the worst thing ever. I just feel like he's one of the weakest looking Serpentine because they're all so cool. And Scales, of course, is the general, so he has the full snake tail, which was a new part for this wave and amazing to get. Now, Scales was the only Serpentine general to come in more than one set. He also came in Cole's Tread Assault, so as such, that made this set a little less desirable. I think that's part of the reason I never got this set as a kid. I wanted all the snake generals, and I already had Scales with that set, so I didn't feel a super big need to get this one, even though I wanted Slitheraa. But now that I'm older, I think exclusive minifigures are a bad thing and every minifigure should be more accessible, so I think the fact that he came in 2 sets is actually pretty cool. And I just love his entire look, like the yellow on top of the dark blue is so nice, the little like white streak in the middle. Such a cool minifigure, man, I love the Serpentine so much. Back torso prints are of course covered up by their head crests, but there's how the printing looks with those removed. So while I would have liked to get even more Serpentine in this set, this was a pretty solid 2 to pick. But now, overall, would I recommend this set? To me personally, as a Ninjago fan who has been following since literally day 1, since January 1st, 2011, even before that, like when it was being teased, it makes me so happy to finally have this set in my collection. This was the original Destiny's Bounty, and the Destiny's Bounty is so iconic. That being said, it is the original. We have 5 others now, and I will say this is unfortunately probably the weakest one. It does do some things pretty well, like the sail functionality is fantastic, and so is the engine functionality. But in terms of looks, it's definitely a step behind everything else, and the biggest thing is just the lack of a bottom. It's so thin, it's almost like a plate, and that does detract from the overall look. It does still work pretty well as a ninja base. I like how much room there is to pose minifigures. I love how many little secrets there are to discover, places to hold weapons and accessories. That's all very fun, but most of the other bounties do that too, and you definitely get a lot more in those sets. So would I recommend it? Unless you're like a long-time hardcore Ninjago fan, probably not, just because there's better options out there. I think I would say this is probably the worst bounty, but it's not my least favorite bounty. Though what would be my least favorite bounty? I don't know. I have to do a whole comparison video. Because I've done it with the others before. I've never had this one in the video. That would be interesting to see. The possession one is also very thin like this, but that leans way heavier into the play features. The other thing is price. I think the original price of $80 for this set is fine, almost even a little bit high. It's not like the worst price ever, but only 680 pieces, only 6 minifigures. They could have made it 70 in 2011. But then aftermarket price for this set is absolutely wild. So I think it's a fun thing to have as a collector, and if you were a kid in 2012, you probably really enjoyed it. But would I recommend picking it up today? Unless you're absolutely in love with it, no, probably not. Solid set though, I do like it, and it really laid the groundwork for everything that was to come after. But of course, those are just my thoughts, so let me know what you guys think of this set in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to my channel if you're new. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, let me know in the comments which set do you want to see a Ninjago throwback review on next. But as for this video, I think that's about all I have to say, so thanks for watching everybody, I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.